Hey everybody, JDOmnislash here. Another free comic book day has come and passed. What did you get? Well, I'll talk about some of the things I got as well. Instead of going through every single issue, I thought I'd make a top 10 instead. Talk about some of my personal favorites, and then maybe compare with some of your personal favorites. As I always say to everyone I know every single year, the comic books may be free for us, but they are not free for the stores that get them. Support your local store, okay? Alright, with that said, let's get started. Number 10, 2000 AD. Surprisingly, the title is actually an all-ages release this time. I don't think I've ever seen a 2000 AD book do that before, but somehow this one managed to pull it off. It was a lot of fun. The Judge Dredd story about the cadet was very fun to read. There's an especially funny story near the end of it called Humancraft about some basically Minecraft characters but that are totally, not Minecraft, but they are playing a game about humans, and it's almost a little too on the nose, but pretty fun because of that. It's one of those things you actually have to read to believe. I can't recommend that enough. Next up, this one's going to be a bit of a personal preference, but this is a pretty big deal too. I put Transformers Unicron up here, and here's why. IDW has had a pretty long run on the Transformers brand. They got me interested in these stories once again, long after Marvel canceled the books when they started up the Regeneration 1 story. This, on the other hand, is going to literally be the end of everything for IDW. IDW is not going to be making Transformers comics once this story is all said and done, and they're obviously ending it with a bang by literally ending it with Unicron, the devourer of worlds. So, I'm actually pretty psyched about it. I go on and off with these types of stories, but I have a feeling that they're going to be really, really nice, and this is admittedly a great setup. Just like the Regeneration 1 free comic book day issue, this is another one I'm finding myself very interested in. Oh, and Rom the Space Knight and his people are in it too. If you enjoy those, you should still read this anyway. Number 8. Another one that's more about a setup for an upcoming story. Power Rangers Shattered Grid. In case you haven't noticed, this story has been kind of hitting the world by storm for multiple reasons. One being that these stories have had a lot more substance than just about anything we've seen Saban put out since he acquired the Power Rangers license again. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens now that Hasbro is apparently going to be taking over that license. But regardless, back on this issue itself, there's a lot of good stuff to talk about here. This is really some of the best storytelling I've seen in a while. This issue serves as more of a setup for everything that's coming up in the Shattered Grid storyline here. It'll put you back up to speed while still moving the plot of the story along just that little inch that you need. It does everything that a comic of this type should do, basically. Put you on the same page with everybody else and make you slightly more excited for the setup. If you're a Power Rangers fan, I have to say it has never been a better time to be one. Between this, all of the great releases of Super Sentai that we've been seeing on DVD from Shout Factory, it's good. We got to keep it going. Next up on the list, and this one, I was hesitant about putting it on this list at first, but I think that it's earned its place here at number 7. This is Lady Mechanica. What we actually get here is a reprint of part of the story in issue 0, which has actually been reprinted on Free Comic Book Day before, but then an all-new story. Now, initially I was going to write it off when I heard that and not bother putting it on there, because as much as I love Lady Mechanica, it kind of annoys me when you see reprints of the same stories over and over again. This ended up being an exception for the main reason that, without going into any spoilers, the second story actually relates to the one from part of issue 0, which is very, very interesting to me. For those who don't know, Lady Mechanica is basically a story about a woman with cybernetic parts who has no real knowledge of her past and tries to go out and figure that out while facing off all kinds of goons and other steampunk goodies. it doesn't do anything I'll call unique, but it works the genre itself very, very well. I think that the writing itself is very, very good. And then, of course, Joe Benitez's art helps carry the rest over. I believe it's worth looking into as far as indie books go. If I remember correctly, this title used to be with Aspen years ago, but Joe kind of left to go do his own self-publishing for this, and I think it's worked well for him. I fully recommend reading this series if you can. Basically, based on everything I've just said, I think you know what you're in for, whether you end up enjoying that or not. Number 6, A Brief History of Tank Girl. Yes, Tank Girl. Who doesn't know and love Tank Girl? Oh, you don't? Well then, maybe this is the book for you. While not exactly being copies of the original stories, this is definitely something that would do a great job of brushing you up on some of what makes the character so loved by so many. You know, she's brash, she's crude, she's unforgiving, and most importantly, she's fun. That's exactly what's always made her such an icon for all different types of people, and I couldn't recommend it more. It's just fun. It is pure, angry, borderline anarchistic fun. Number 5 here. This one completely caught me off guard. I had never heard of the story before, and I'm a little shocked at how interested I am in it now. This one's called Maxwells Demons. This is just a preview of some segments from the first volume, and now that I've read this, I am fully immersed. I have to know what happens in it. To go into what it's about without giving too much away at the same time, this young boy, Maxwell, and his robotic stuffed animals have a gateway in his closet into other universes, and he goes on little missions, basically fighting big monsters and protecting his own universe, while he also deals with a pretty horrible, abusive father in the real world. The first thing that surprised me about this book was that it is not for kids, really, at all, despite being about a child, a genius child at that, but yeah, trust me when I say this is not what you or I would expect. The artwork is also quite stunning. Just to give some examples here, if you just take a look and see the way that those colors really blend in, it's almost watercolor style in the way it works and the way that the scenery pans itself out. It's really something to behold, and there's so much more than what I'm actually seeing initially. I had to read this one twice, and I'm still finding little new details every time I look back on it. I can already tell bigger things are coming in it, and as a result, this issue pretty much did everything that a good Free Comic Book Day issue should, in my eyes. I'm absolutely shocked, but I couldn't be more excited to read the rest of it now. Again, warning, even though it says all ages, because there's no blood or violence or anything like that, but the imagery itself and some of the dialogue can be very disturbing in places, so just a heads up there. Number 4, another story that I've not read before, but it is an original one by Drawn and Quarterly. This is Berlin. This one is actually historic fiction, taken during the Weimar Republic period in Germany. This is an absolutely fascinating look at that period in history, something that I've only mildly read about in school before, but it's clearly a period in history that does need to be talked about more, and I'm very curious to see the rest. It's a total of 3 volumes of graphic novels that make up the full story. Drawn and Quarterly, you can usually expect some pretty quality stuff from them, and I think that this is no exception to that rule. They definitely managed to pull you in, and despite being a graphic medium, give you a very, very good mental as well as visual representation of what was really going on at that time. So I can't wait to look more into that. This next one I don't actually have a picture of because I am embarrassed to say that despite going to 2 different stores, I could not get a physical copy of this one. But it is Fantagraphics, World's Greatest Cartoonists. I managed to get last year's and had to just bum off of somebody else's to get an impression for this one. As usual, they do a great job of carrying over bits of new stories and previews for upcoming stories, previews for some books that have already been released but have some new material within for it. You can pretty much never go wrong with these, even if there's a few where you may not fully understand what's going on. It's fun to look into those titles later and see what some of them are all about. I really got into, for example, last year, My Favorite Thing is Monsters, because the preview was just so interesting in how small it was, and despite most of these previews only being a couple of pages, each one puts enough substance in it to make you, I think, want to read all of them and see where they're going. Fantagraphics is another one of those brands where you know that you're getting some pretty high quality stuff when you go into it. People look at them the same way that people look at groups like Criterion Collection for releasing classic movies, Criterion and Kino and all of those types of brands. They're that highly regarded, and I say you can really never go wrong reading those and picking up those titles every year. And I hope that they continue that tradition, frankly, because I always get absorbed every time, and I'm glad that they can still put out that level of quality each year. Number 2. This is another one that I'm kind of embarrassed I didn't know existed before now, though that was in part due to it only being released in digital before now. This is Brian K. Vaughan's Barrier. Now, you may notice that I'm holding it horizontally, like so. That is because the whole comic is horizontal, like so. Other books have been put out by this independent publishing group before, where you literally pay, you choose what you pay for the digital issues. Barrier comprised of a total of 5 issues. I'm sure that we'll see it in graphic novel form at some point, like some of their other past creations have come out that way. The reason I fully recommend this is because A, it's a full issue, B, it's Brian K. Vaughan, and C, without going into too many spoilers, it deals with both people trying to immigrate into the country and people who patrol said borders, which may not sound that interesting at first until you realize that, and I was just as surprised to find this out, this is actually a sci-fi story. Do you want to know how that is? Well, I can't spoil it for you, but it was very interesting to find out, and because of that, I'm actually really, really enticed, and I really want to read the rest of these now. This was a real surprise one out of nowhere. I mean, Brian K. Vaughan is absolutely a great writer. I enjoyed his work on Y: The Last Man and Saga and a few other projects, but this one totally caught me off guard. This is as mature rated can get, and this is a real standout. I think this is very, very worth it for just about anybody who is old enough to read it. I think they all owe it to themselves to give it a try. And before I give my number 1 pick, I'm going to do a couple of quick honorable mentions, because there's so many of them to go through and just never enough time. I mean, once I'm done with this, I'm sure you're all going to tell me I missed something, and that's totally cool. I'm sure that I did. It's, I read about 30 or so comics, and that still wasn't even scratching the surface of everything that came out this year, so, bear with me. First honorable mention is the new Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes issue, along with a preview for Ta-Nehisi Coates' Captain America run, which I'm very, very interested to see. Without going into too many details, I didn't really enjoy Nick Spencer's run on the character. It's not just the idea that they turned Cap into a Hydra agent. I could live with that if the premise itself didn't seem so ridiculous to me, and that was kind of a flaw, and it was a shame because I thought that it was well written enough, that whole run, as well as Secret Empire and everything. They were well written enough, but the premise itself just never connected with me in a way where I thought I could enjoy it. It just, I don't know, it just didn't work for me. So the preview for Captain America in that actually got me very excited. Coates has also written really wonderful books like Between the World and Me, and he also did a run on Black Panther. He was the most recent writer of it, so I'm very curious to see what he's going to bring to the table now. The Avengers story wasn't really blown away by it, though I'm still interested to see what, next major developments will come as a result of it. But that's why this ended up being an honorable mention, because I just wasn't as blown away by the main story, though the backup story, of course, with Cap here intrigues me. Next honorable mention runner-up is Doctor Who. Main reason why it's in the honorable mention category and not a top 10 is because all of the stories contained in this are so short and unfulfilling that I can't fully recommend them, though I still had little bits of fun with them. That said, if you're not already a Whovian, this isn't going to change your mind about that. This is designed for people who are already fans of it. So I got what I wanted out of it, but I can't in all good conscience say, oh, everyone should read it, they'll all fall in love with these characters. I can't do that. I can't in all good conscience do that. That said, we did get a nice little preview picture of Jodie Whittaker as the new Doctor, which I'll show really quick here, just because I don't think it's a spoiler. We already know what she looks like in it. But I thought that was a great drawing, and it'll be cool to see her in the comics now too, as well as when she finally comes to the show in August. I'm still looking forward to that. Next honorable mention, and this is because it only just barely missed the list, was Invader Zim. If Vasquez has proven anything, it's that he's still got it. I still laugh at this just as much as I did when I watched the cartoon back when that first came to television. Just as much as I enjoyed, though cringed, at Johnny the Homicidal Maniac when he wrote that as well. But if there's anything I've seen, it's that, Vasquez, this is a formula that still works with Vasquez here. If you liked the character before, you'll still like it now. It's just as funny as it was back then. It's written by the same guy. It's a win-win. You can't go wrong. Like I said, just barely missed that top 10. Just barely. It was so close. I still recommend you all read it. And finally, getting to my number one pick, I'm a little surprised to be saying this because you just heard me say that I was not too thrilled with Nick Spencer's run on Cap, right? Well, lo and behold, he is going to become the writer for Amazing Spider-Man, which is my actual number one pick here. Now, for those who remember, Nick Spencer has written for Spider-Man before, just not Amazing Spider-Man. He wrote Superior Foes of Spider-Man, which was more or less a comedy book. Well, those comedy roots are back again. This is fun, silly Spidey, without too much of the depressing angst that makes us all go, ugh, can I even keep reading this anymore? Well, I'm shocked to say I actually really liked this. This gave me the same vibes that I got from Superior Foes, and I may actually still be on board. I'm still not thrilled with some of the character's other work, or even some things that he's set out in public before, but that's not a big deal. What is a big deal is how much I ended up actually enjoying this, and I'll check it out. I wasn't sure if I was going to keep going with Amazing Spider-Man after Dan Slott leaves the title. I was already mixed on him as a writer for the book too. While I enjoyed more things than not from him, it's been more than enough time that somebody else should have come on as the main, the main writer for the book. I mean, if you actually count it out, Dan Slott has written over a quarter of all Amazing Spider-Man issues in existence, of a series that's about to have 800 issues. That's huge. I mean, that's really, really huge. It's also cool to see Ryan Ottley actually coming on as the main artist for this title, too. For those who don't remember, he did Invincible with Robert Kirkman before this, and now that that's finished up, he's moving on to clearly even bigger things now. I actually met Ottley at New York Comic Con a couple of years ago, right before unexpectedly meeting Robert Kirkman. That was quite a surprise. And he was a really nice guy to talk to. Really, calm, chill person. The kind of person that you'd want to hang out with just because they're so nice and down to earth. So I'm really excited to see him moving on to a bigger title like this too. Like I said, mixed thoughts on Spencer aside. We'll see how this plays out. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. So with that said, yeah, I'm on board with this now. I'm very, very excited to see where things can go from here. Unfortunately, they still don't seem to be putting Peter and Mary Jane back together anytime soon, but I gave up on waiting for that to come back a long time ago, so that's just how that is. And there you have it. Those are my top picks for Free Comic Book Day 2018. Let me know some of your favorites and your experiences this year from the stores you hit up, and what did you buy from them, because you better have bought things from them. Remember, I said to support them. I guess I should tell you what I bought too. I got issues of the new Sonic the Hedgehog. I caught up on Mr. Miracle, caught up on Doomsday Clock. What else did I get? I don't even remember what else I got. Anyway, yeah, support your stores, damn it. Alright. And with that said, it has been fun, and I will talk to you all again soon. Take care.